In a recent talk, Jonathan Haidt has the provocative title, "Why So Many Americans Don't Want Social Justice." And that does sort of raise an eyebrow, because after all, you'd think everybody wants social justice. But he suggests that liberals and conservatives are going to disagree on this very point. And his moral foundations research will help us understand why there's disagreement about social justice. Now, traditionally, social justice refers to this idea that there have been groups in society who have been disadvantaged through history, who have been in a subordinate position in the social hierarchy. Minorities, women, homosexuals. And Haidt argues that liberals are going to see these groups in society as victim groups. And they are in need of a restoration of justice because these groups in the past have suffered injustices, right? Now, that gets us then to, again, well, wait, why wouldn't everybody see the need for a social justice movement, right, to restore justice, to rectify previous injustices? Well, traditionally, Haidt argues, liberals have given two types of answers. One is that the dominant class is just guarding privilege. They're being selfish here, right? So to empower these groups in society would come at the expense of the power and status of these groups in society, or perhaps even the wealth as well. Another liberal sort of approach would be to focus on race. If the dominant class has been from one racial category, white, and some of the subordinate victim groups are minorities, well then any kind of in-group bias here, right? So any kind of racial bias would be another reason for one group to not embrace social justice. Now, Haidt is going to offer a third understanding of why some groups in society don't embrace social justice, and it's based on his moral foundations research. So let's just review what his kind of overall approach to morality is. He argues that morality is all about binding groups together around sacred objects, leaders, and principles. Right, and so all groups, all societies that have moral systems, you can see morality through this lens. It binds groups together around sacred objects, leaders, and principles. Now, for liberals, in his matrix of the 6 foundations, for liberals, he's going to suggest that liberals really have the one main foundation, the harm and care foundation. It's issues of harm and care that really trigger liberals to want to make moral judgments, right and wrong. And from this foundation, then, we see that these victim groups, or these groups in society who have suffered in the past, liberals will see them as victim groups, and consequently, they will try to restore justice in society. So in a sense, liberals are sacralizing victim groups. So the sacred object for liberals are these victim groups. And the key mission, then, in the social justice movement is to empower these victim groups. Now, here's Haidt's point, though. What liberals then do to empower victim groups is that they endorse and they support government programs and policies and other social norms that end up violating the other foundations. And you'll recall that conservatives endorse all 6 moral foundations, and liberals to a much lesser degree those 3 foundations here, but conservatives value all 6. And so if liberals, in an attempt to empower victim groups, if they enact policies or endorse social norms and institutions that challenge these moral foundations, well, then you're going to get pushback. You're going to get disagreement on the part of conservatives. So Haidt's explanation for why not everybody embraces social justice is that the pursuit of the liberal project of empowering victim groups, the pursuit of social justice, is violating other moral dimensions, other moral domains. I'll just illustrate how policies might violate fairness and liberty here, and for the rest you can consult notes or watch his talk. Take fairness. Now, liberals then tend to suggest that that the fairness for the liberal is group-based equality. If there are groups in society who are disadvantaged or who just aren't doing as well, perhaps due to structural unfairness in the system, then we need to address that. So group-based equality is what then leads to programs like affirmative action. Now, affirmative action then is, in a sense, giving an advantage to one group based on the color of their skin. And what conservatives are going to do is respond to that and say that's unfair. That's an unfairness. That's like reverse discrimination. Notice Corey Robin would say this is classic conservatism, reacting, right, to a liberal project of emancipation. The liberals are going to attempt to redress a past injustice, and conservatives are going to respond intellectually by saying that is unfair. Affirmative action is unfair. Notice then two different notions of fairness. Or take taxation. Again, on the fairness issue. Taxation is, liberals often endorse higher taxes on the wealthy, and conservatives and Republicans make the argument that this is unfair, and they also make that other argument that it's bad for the economy overall. But for liberals, the notion here is that that taxation is fair because there are harmed groups, there are victim groups in need of greater resources. And again, on the liberty point, we can look at taxation. When liberals endorse greater taxation in order to invest in the victim groups and to empower them, conservatives can respond that that is a constraint. It is limiting freedom, right? And remember the alternate frames. Conservatives will embrace a freedom to. They want the freedom to spend their wealth as they see fit. And liberals endorse the freedom from. They want people to be empowered, to be free from discrimination, free from poverty, free from illness. But that takes resources. So again, in the liberal project to empower victim groups, they are enacting policies that violate these conceptions of fairness and liberty that others in society, conservatives and Republicans, have. And so Haidt is arguing that not all Americans embrace social justice because the project that liberals have taken on is violating other moral dimensions that people hold dear. And just one last point about the taxation and liberty issue. It's as if liberals, when they think about the wealth being generated in an economy, it's as if liberals understand some of this wealth as a sort of a common good, right? It's common property, some of that wealth, right? Whereas, see, from the conservative point of view, the taxation regimes that liberals would like to see can be seen as an attempt to desanctify private property. That the wealth being generated by this class up here, conservatives say, is their wealth, and liberals come along with their taxation policies sort of expropriating that wealth. In other words, it's as if the liberals think that some of the wealth up here is not really theirs. It belongs to other groups and societies. And so you get the accusations of the socialism and so on, and the idea that liberals sort of don't like wealthy people, or they don't respect private property and so on. So again, in summary, Haidt is arguing that social justice is not embraced by everybody in society because different political teams have different understandings of fairness and liberty and what justice amounts to.